overwhelming willpower, outstanding fortitude, unshattering determination, and sheer, unbridled will. That is what makes Augusta, a woman as bright and unyielding as the blazing sun. Her footsteps carry the combined force of all of Septimont: the will to survive, the desire to take one more step after the other, never looking down, always up. Today, we talk about Augusta, the Effer of Septimont, and the radiant hero of heroes who rose from the blood of the old king. Let's take a look together at the advent of this warrior queen.
Leaders rule! Winners win! Stand tall before the eternal sun!
Augusta was born in a suburban city in Sanguis Plateau that went by the name of Fabianium, a town that was known for producing fine young gladiators that would later travel to the capital to participate in the Bloody Aegon, searching for fame, money, or glory. Born a resonator, Augusta's forte left much to be desired. She has the simple ability of electromagnetism, being able to manipulate metals in a short radius around her. It didn't exactly help much when it came to battle, and as such was called a weak forte, which, well, in a world where fortes like Cristoforos or Encores exist, yeah, it is rather weak in comparison. But that didn't deter Augusta. Ever since she was a child, she always exhibited a strong charisma, breaking up fights with kids and getting in fights herself to protect her friends from bullies. Even if she got herself beat up in the process, she didn't care as long as she delivered the message. In Septimont, there exists a legend, the tale of Manus Deep, a civilization buried deep under Sanguis Plateau where the voices of ancient heroes can be heard, and by listening, one may gain their powers and an incredibly strong forte. Many of Fabianium's kids made this legend their dream. It was even said that to go into Manus Deep, one needed to have 2 lives, and in Septimont, a gladiator's second life is his sword. So, Fabianium's kids would spend their days trying to earn their elders' favors in order to obtain a blade and go on the journey to Manus Deep. Now, no one actually managed to succeed on this quest, at least none that we know of. Manus Deep is said to not actually exist after all, even though the place that is rumored to be its entrance is real, Oak Hollow. Manus Deep itself seems to be just a legend, at least for now. A legend that was pursued by Augusta herself. But unlike the other kids, she never got the chance to actually go to Oak Hollow, always placing others' needs before hers. Even when she had an available sword, she chose to give it away for others to try instead. Alas, that peaceful life was rapidly coming to an end. Tensions rose high in Fabianium as a dark tide encroached upon it, slowly but surely. Then one day, Calamity struck. The dark tide seeped into Fabianium, destroying everything in its path. The town stood no chance, and reinforcements arrived too late. Amidst the chaos, Augusta gripped the sword of a fallen gladiator and escorted her best friend through the ruins all the way to Oak Hollow. She hid the angel inside and stood guard to protect. However, the Dark Tide was not interested in the feeble Augusta. It ignored her attempts at distraction and went straight after Angel. What happened after that, we don't know. However, it is stated that Angel's forte grew so strong that even the Dark Tide could not withstand it. It transformed her into something beyond human. Then, she disappeared without a trace. Many speculate that Angel is the upcoming character by the name of Galbrina, and so far, it's all but confirmed. The theory gets more and more support by the day. We'll definitely explore that further when the time arrives. But for now, we focus on Augusta. The young girl was touched by the Dark Tide, but even then, she remained stalwart and unyielding. She fought to the best of her ability. It was not an easy feat, but she held off until help arrived. She was taken to Septimon's capital. There, she learned about gladiating and saw the bloody battles and the constant chase after glory. But she also saw the corruption festering in the ranks of the elites, how the nobility exploited the weak and vulnerable for their own gain. And she could not stomach the idea. She had always been like this. She stood up to injustice and defended the weak. She always spoke against evil and gave up her own belongings to those in need. So this sight, this eyesore, was something she could not accept. Therefore, she swore to take on the system. She spent days searching for a mentor to teach her the art of gladiating, but none would take an inexperienced rat from the suburbs, and nobody with nothing but her name. That is, until she came across Kato, an old gladiator who challenged her will directly, telling her that she was weak and unfit for the arena. Yet, bravely, she did not back down. She fought him and lost, yet she was right back up the next day to take his challenge once more. Again and again and again, until one day, during her last bout with Kato, something unexpected happened. Her strike was parried, the sword flew from her hand, and her consciousness suddenly drifted into a world of darkness. She could no longer remember how many times she fell, and slowly, fear grasped her heart like a vice. She was scared that she would collapse without achieving anything, that her journey would end here, and that she'd be forgotten, like she never even existed. But then, a whisper. It was sudden, cutting through the darkness like a match being lit in the darkest of nights. It told her to feel this fear, this weakness, to remember it well, because only by knowing weakness can one know true strength, that her desire to be a hero is more than enough as a first step towards becoming one. And just like that, Augusta's will suddenly reignited. She stood up again, gripping her blade once more, and challenged Kato with newfound strength, finally winning their duel. Through sheer determination, Augusta managed to procure herself a way of training, and even a place in the arena. Once she finished her training, she found a sponsor, a cocky elite who contracted her. But to properly sponsor her as a gladiator in the arena, he demanded she prove herself. First, he asked her to go back to Sanguis Plateau and slay a ferocious beast. Then, he asked that she takes 100 lives. As in Septimon's, a warrior's life is his blade, and she needed to defeat 100 opponents to be acknowledged. During this quest, Augusta remained undefeated. Even when she was up against nobility who tried to bribe her into throwing the match, she could not care less. She took their swords and added them to the collection. And so, after defeating her 100th opponent, Augusta earned herself a place among the nobility. Even as a girl from the suburbs, she sat next to high-ranking elites watching an underground tournament. She felt out of place, uncomfortable. More so when it was revealed that this tournament was a 100-men free-for-all to the death in order to find a worthy opponent for her, the undefeated, composed solely of gladiators who have fallen to her in battle before. The whispers returned again, telling her to accept this gift, to take her place among the strong. She deserves it after all. She trampled on so much to get here already. Now it was time to reap what she sowed. Yet, snapping out of it, Augusta jumped into the arena and raised her sword, challenging all the combatants at once. And when the dust settled, she was still victorious, and without shedding a single drop of blood. Augusta remained uncontested. Her victories came one after the other, and slowly the whispers began to fade away as Augusta made her way to the top, resisting their temptations, never killing her opponents, only taking their blades instead. And before long, she was standing before the noble who hired her, a champion of the Aegon, carrier of 100 lives. And yet still, he demanded more. His final challenge for Augusta was to stand against Arsinosa, the Lioness of Glory. A being so powerful, no one even dared challenge before. Champions, gladiators, warriors, all mere humans with flesh and blood. But Arstinoza was different. She was the Sentinel's envoy and the guardian angel of Septimont. Yet Augusta did not care. She took up her blade and stood up to the towering Echo. Indeed, she won. With her overwhelming tenacity and battle tactics, she secured herself victory and the blessing of the Lioness. It didn't take long then for Augusta to be noticed by the previous effort of Septimont, a veteran gladiator by the name of Magno. One evening when she was in the ring, a helmed man stepped up to her challenge. He was fierce, powerful, likely the most powerful man she had faced by that point. Yet, he was defeated. But during their battle, Augusta recognized him as the Ether in disguise. What she did not know, however, was that the very next day, she was going to be invited to the palace for a talk. A talk that ended with Augusta being appointed his successor. Alas, sadly, it didn't take long for the Ether to meet an untimely end, poisoned on his own throne. But one tragic end was another's glorious beginning. Augusta took up the crown and brought change to Septimont. First, the Aegon was reformed. From bloody 1v1s that encouraged enmity, to 2v2s that encouraged teamwork and sportsmanship instead. Then the long fingers of the elite were trimmed short. No longer could they prey upon the weak or use those in need for their own selfish gains. She respected the demands of the temple and struck a fair balance between it and the Senate. And finally, she ruled with a fist of iron, tolerating no corruption whatsoever. For the darkness cannot encroach in the presence of the burning sun, and Augusta was just as brilliant. Such is the warrior queen of Septimont, the peak of humanity's willpower and perseverance. A woman as bright as the sunlight and as bold as the gout of flame. As for what happens next, we'll find out together. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to press the like button, subscribe, join the Discord to enjoy discussions with other lore enthusiasts and myself included. And with that, this was Imaginary Watcher, and I'll see you around.